here's a question for you. What does Amazon, Airbnb, Facebook, and arguably countless others all have in common? It's the fact that they all started really narrow and very niche. Facebook was a directory for Harvard students, Amazon was an online bookstore, and Airbnb, believe it or not, started as a way for designers who were attending a conference in the Bay Area to be able to just find a place to stay. This is niching down. Hi and welcome. For those new here, my name is Ant Murphy. I'm a product coach and the founder of Product Pathways, and I created Product Pathways to help product managers and founders like you build more meaningful and impactful products. I do this through product content and education, videos like this, free tools and templates like the niche canvas, which we'll go through in a second, as well as online courses and my newsletter. So if you want to check out any of those, the links are in the description below. But in this video, I want to take you through the niche canvas. I want to take you through what niching down is as a strategy, why it's so important and so impactful. We'll go through some real world examples of the niche canvas so you can see how it plays out in practice. And at the end, I want to take you through the niche canvas's super secret superpower. Well, not so secret because I'm going to take you through it, but it has a hidden superpower. And that is how it can be used as a tool in order to make you think about and facilitate expansion and growth. So stay tuned at the end for that. You don't want to miss that part. So let's start with what is a niche. A niche is simply a product or service or interest that appeals to a small and specialized group. This is a powerful strategy in the early days for products because what generally happens inside markets is that over time, as companies grow, they become more broad. So they'll start to cover a broader spectrum of customers. As a result in that too, they often start to move away from their niche that they generally started in, and they start to become more of a generic offering. This is great for them because they cover a broader spectrum inside the market. But what this often creates is pockets of underserved needs where people are using their solutions, but their solutions just aren't, fit for purpose for them. And because they're such a small subset of the market, it's generally not a large enough opportunity for that large company to actually go and chase. And what this presents for you as an entrant into the market, especially for small startups, but early stage products in general, is that you can actually focus in on that niche. That opportunity that is too small for them to focus on is the perfect size for you. And you can hone in on that niche and that underserved market and do it better than the competitors and do it better than anyone, really. And when we walk through some examples of the niche canvas, I've deliberately picked companies that did exactly that. So you'll get to see how this plays out in practice and how you can also not be afraid to niche down because you can always expand beyond there in the future. So I developed this tool known as the niche canvas. I did this based on my own experience working with 0 to 1 products, but I started working with a lot of founders and product managers and startups, and I felt the need to really find a way to help them codify and define their niche in just a very short, punchy, and effective way. I've used this niche canvas a lot in a lot of my training and coaching since then, and it's turned out to be a very powerful tool to help facilitate your thinking and just codify what your niche might be and who it might be for. So the niche canvas works like this. It's probably less of a canvas and more of a statement, but it basically works like this. Our product is for someone who has some type of set of traits, characteristics, what makes them unique. They do something and have some specific need or problem. Now, this is visualized in this way as in boxes within boxes because every single time you step down one of these statements, you're making that initial market more narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow and narrow and smaller. And you can always think of this as like the 5 whys and just trying to really get even deeper and deeper and narrower and narrower and narrower until you get down to that really small niche at the bottom. Something to be mindful about with the niche canvas when filling it out is that it assumes that you know your market really well. So if you haven't done the market research, if you don't know your market really well, then I would implore you to actually go and do that research first. If you're in a 0 to 1 space and maybe don't even know what potential product you might build or what potential target market you might have, and you haven't done any research, I would encourage you to do that first step and do some exploratory research to start to learn more about potential target markets that you might target, learn more about who those people are, what challenges they have, what are the things they do, what sets them apart. And through that research, you'll be able to get some data in order to basically input into this niche canvas and help define who your niche might be. So when you're filling this out, a prerequisite to this is actually just knowing your market really well and having the research and the data to basically input into filling this out. So I just wanted to mention that and precursor that before we actually walk through some examples and you fill out your own niche canvas too. So to walk you through some examples of some companies and products that have done this really effectively, one of my favorite examples of this more recently has been ConvertKit. They are a great example of using this strategy. Now, ConvertKit is for content creators. In fact, they started out with doing things for bloggers. In fact, more specifically, professional bloggers. So bloggers who were serious and wanted to make a living out of their blogs. And not just any blogger that's serious, bloggers who actually collect their email addresses of their audience and send regular emails. Also, bloggers that don't have the time to be doing it themselves and they need some tools to help them schedule and automate things and to be able to connect with their audience. Arguably, they're still very niche down today, even at those numbers. They're still very focused on content creators. But this is a great example of not just finding a niche and building a product for that niche, but also a niche inside a red ocean industry that has so many big multi-billion-dollar players in there and actually being able to apply it successfully to win. Another example I'll use here for the similar reasons as well is Qualtrics. So many of you are probably quite familiar with Qualtrics. You might have even used it before because it's an analytics company, but Qualtrics really started with schools and surveys. So you think about their niche was school surveys. So here's an example of how the niche canvas can work. Our product is for companies, but not just companies, for schools, companies which are schools. And not just any schools, only schools that want to conduct regular research. And not just any school that wants to conduct regular research, they have a survey tool and therefore they're focused on ones that want to survey their students. That is where Qualtrics started. And since then they've expanded and obviously they are what they are today. So Qualtrics, another great example of leveraging this strategy. And the last one I'll just touch on here as another example is Lululemon. Similar reasons again while I picked these examples. So Lululemon had to fight against, the giants of Nike and Co, right? And Lululemon did that by starting really, really niche. They started with yoga clothing for women and they really focused on comfort and particularly for women's silhouettes, but also materials. And that's where they started. And if you look at Lululemon today, they're worth $20-30 billion, maybe a bit more. And they are, seen as a real premium brand. And they are doing a really great job at competing with those incumbents and people like Nike. Now, it's very easy, and this is why I picked these examples. It's very easy to think, well, there's no point in trying to build a fitness clothing brand because you just can't compete with Nike, Under Armour, etc. They're just far too big. The market's far too saturated. But Lululemon and others, look at even Gymshark, which is even more recent. Like Lululemon's 15, 20 years old, I think 15. Gymshark is even, or maybe actually older, Lululemon. But Gymshark is only like 7-10 years, less than 10 or less years old, right? And it just goes to show that you can look at an industry and again, look at the red ocean and think, there's no way in hell I can compete in there. And it's fine to have that as a choice and say, look, I'm going to just back out. I'm not going to bother competing there. But what these products and these companies have proven is that you can compete there if you apply strategies like the niche strategy and niching down effectively. So there's a few examples of how the niche canvas can actually work in practice, but also some great examples of how, these companies manage to compete inside red oceans and very saturated markets with multi-billion-dollar competitors. And they manage to leverage a niching down strategy in order to start small and to expand and to do that small niche really, really well and make a name for yourself. And then now they're actually, punching up that market and they're starting to fight with those really, really big names. And this is how you can use these strategies to enter those markets and ultimately also win. So the last thing I want to touch on niching down and the niche canvas is the fact that the niche canvas can be a great tool in order to think about an expansion path. So this is another reason why the tool was created the way that it was. Is because, as I mentioned before, as you kind of move down those boxes, the market gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And this means that we can also reverse engineer that. We can also expand by getting broader and broader and broader and broader. So the niche canvas is not only a great tool for you to define your niche, it's also a great tool to basically think about your potential expansion path. So to use Lululemon as an example, you can kind of start at this bottom niche and you can just start to work your way out. And to illustrate how this can start to play out in some different dimensions, think about it like Lululemon started with yoga clothing for women. You could easily go from yoga clothing for women to just yoga clothing in general, right? So unisex. In fact, you could even go from yoga clothing to then yoga equipment too. So you can even just drop the clothing part. You could also go from yoga clothing for women to be just women's fitness apparel in general. You can go from there and you can be like Nike and stuff and just fitness clothing in general. In fact, you can start to move away from clothing even into fitness equipment from there. So you can see how you can start niche and start to build that expansion path out. So I hope this is an actionable tool for you to be able to sit down and just define your niche. Like, who is your product for? What set of characteristics and traits do they have that makes them unique compared to other people in that market? What are they doing that again makes them even more unique than others in the market? And within that doing something, what challenge or problem or need do they have that you then solve for them? And if you can get down to that level, you're going to find, or at least you're going to be quite niche down. So niching down is all about just finding that really narrow part of the market. If you were just to replace niche with narrow, I'd even be happy with that alone, right? But it's a very effective strategy, particularly for 0 to 1 products. And you can see how it can help you find that blue ocean in a red ocean. And again, be that high leverage activity and give you disproportionate results. So particularly for those on 0 to 1 products, but I think for everyone, it's worth just, taking the moment, grab the niche canvas, sit down and start to think about, if I was to fill out this canvas, who would it be for? If you got value from this video, you're gonna love the product strategy course over on Product Pathways, Product Strategy Demystified. The niche canvas is featured and niching down as a strategy is featured within that course, where I talk about several other types of strategic levers that you can apply, things like flywheels and product moats. But check out that course. I go deep into product strategy. How do you form a product strategy? Go through that process, as well as giving you a whole bunch of tools and templates, from a template to workshop your product strategy to one to actually, write down your product strategy and codify it. There is a lot of value and so much in that course. And so if you loved or you got value from this, you'll definitely love that course. And as always, I appreciate the support and I'll see you at the next one.